it's Gene, retired in Mexico. And if you're new to the channel, we like to look at 21st century music and 20th century music. And today, I want to react to this article from back in time today, 26 songs that change music forever in the world along with them. So, yeah, some of these are pretty old songs. So we're in an age of revisionism, and I can tell you that. Let me see if I can get my get to where I'm looking at you guys a little more. I'm let's see here. Okay, I'm not really looking at you, but that's okay. You ever see uh, that channel Drumeo? The guy never looks at the camera. Anyway, um, I saw the first two. They're really good picks. I thought I'd comment on them as best I can. There's a lot of revisionism going on today, and the ones that are older than me or older than my adulthood, I've got to employ a little bit of revisionism too. But let's go through these songs and I'll give you my opinion kind of with the rating. So the first one here, which I saw, was Like a Rolling Stone by Bob Dylan. And I agree with this totally. He was a folkie, and then he did Bringing It All Back Home, the album in 65, and just blew the doors open on folk rock and paved the way for bands like the Byrds and the Hollies and all these different people. And yeah, music was never the same after Like a Rolling Stone. I was just a little kid. I don't even think I was riding a bike yet. I mean, I was a really little kid, but as I understand it, going back, listening to music through time, you listen to 64 and then you listen to 65. Everything changed in 65. The Beatles did Rubber Soul. Yeah, Like a Rolling Stone. Next one here from 1958, the year I was born. So I definitely don't remember this one. Johnny Be Good, Chuck Berry. Yeah, I agree with that because it changed guitar. So the way I look at it is there were several primal or fundamental rock and rollers in the beginning. Little Richard, he kind of pioneered showmanship, and he and Jerry Lee Lewis pioneered the piano. But Chuck Berry did two things. One was he pioneered rock and roll guitar. Yeah, he had people like T Bone Walker and different people that were doing it in the blues, Muddy Waters. But Chuck Berry came along with that rat a tat tat machine gun style, and he also was a great lyricist. He didn't get enough credit for that in his lifetime. Johnny Be Good is great lyrics, and the guitar and the singing go right along with each other. And yeah, it's really primal rock and roll. Uh, Buddy Holly a little bit, but mostly Chuck Berry. All right, so I give both of those a 10. Strange Fruit, Billie Holiday. Yeah, way before my time. Obviously, Billie Holiday changed everything with her phrasing, and she influenced people like Frank Sinatra and a whole bunch of people that came after her. She just didn't sing with typical phrasing. Strange Fruit, though, is an interesting choice, and I think they're picking this probably because of Strange Fruit is bodies hanging from the trees. Yeah, it's about lynching, and for an African American artist to take that on straightforward and just talk about it. She didn't write much, but my understanding is she wrote this song, and it really got people's attention back in the day, as I understand it. Again, this is way before I was born. We're talking, my parents were little kids when this song came out, but yeah, as I understand it, it just really changed the content of songs, the lyrical content of songs, and no one was really quite so bold. So yeah, I'd probably give that a score of a 9. That changed a lot of things as I understand it. Haunting protests against racism and lynching. This song became an anthem for the civil rights movement. I really, because civil rights movement was in the '60s. Um, yeah, I didn't know that. I was thinking more currently. Yesterday, the Beatles. Well, anything by the Beatles changed things. I don't know if this is the best choice of song. There were songs like I Feel Fine that came out in 66 that that I would think would be, with that feedback guitar and so forth. Yesterday is just a gorgeous melody. But it's a pop song. I agree with the year and the band. But to pick this song from Rubber Soul when you had maybe some other ones like Norwegian Wood or In My Life, those are John Lennon songs. Yeah, I don't know. Yesterday doesn't seem that radical to me. I'll give this like a six. I'm not sure this changed music forever. Let's see what they say real quick. Yeah, I mean, they're just talking about it being a good song, which it is. It's a great song, but I don't know that I agree that that changed music forever. But certainly the album did. Rubber Soul. Good Vibrations, the Beach Boys. Absolutely. That's a 10. I think no one would argue with that. You had that sort of Phil Spector style production, but it was Brian Wilson who produced it. You had the Wrecking Crew on this. And even today, it sounds radical. And you had a theremin in there. Yeah. Good Vibrations pushed the production envelope, and the Beatles responded later with Sgt. Pepper. You had the Beatles, the Beach Boys, and I have a book that argues that Simon and Garfunkel, Roy Haley was their producer. You had George Martin for the Beatles. You had Brian Wilson producing the Beach Boys. But there were some very interesting things going on with Roy Haley. You listen to Sounds of the Silence or later The Boxer in 1970. Certainly some interesting productions from Roy Haley. So those were kind of the three artists that were just changing everything, using the studio for production. Good Vibrations must have blown everybody's mind when it came out. I was 8. I don't remember. Respect, Aretha Franklin. So, yeah, I think I agree with that. I've read a lot of articles about this song. The producer, why am I spacing out his name right now? He spent 8 hours tuning the drums. This was a Otis Redding song. If you listen to the original, it's okay, but they transformed this song over at Atlantic Records, and Aretha plays the piano. Her sisters that sang backup came up with the idea of Sakatumi Sakatumi, and Aretha came up with the. I'm not sure if Otis spelled it out. I think that was her idea to spell it out, Respect. But Respect by Aretha Franklin remains one of the great Atlantic singles, along with a couple Sam and Dave songs. And yeah, just stellar production. To have soul and R&B produced at this level. And of course, great singer, great singer. So I think you have to say this was a song that changed things because it was played so much on the radio. Again, I don't remember firsthand, but when I listened to the radio, this song would have been about 4 years old when I started listening to rock and roll radio. So it was still in rotation. They were still playing it. And it sounds great on AM or FM radio, either one. So yeah, that's like a 9. A Day in the Life, the Beatles, a better choice. The production by George Martin, pioneering. You have the use of the orchestra, which they had done before, but A Day in the Life really had that sort of avant-garde atonal strings that were in it. And yeah, it was, and of course, it's a song within a song. You have Paul McCartney's little song, Woke Up, Fell Out of Bed, Dragged a Comb Across My Head, which is a completely different song right in the middle. And then it goes back to the John Lennon part. And then it has that huge piano chord at the end. There was nothing like it. Yeah, I would agree. That's a 10. The Beatles were changing everything. Purple Haze, Jimi Hendrix. Yeah, I mean, you would think All Along the Watchtower, but that came out in 68. And this song was, I think, recorded in 66, came out in 67. This was the first really super electric song that people would have heard on the radio. And he revolutionized guitar. There's no argument, right? Nobody ever played guitar the same. So what Chuck Berry did for rock and roll guitar, Jimi Hendrix took it to a whole new level. And to tell you his influence, Jimi Hendrix influence, people are still talking about him today. Still talking about him today. Never got to see him. He died in 71 when I was 13 years old. But I did get to see Stevie Ray Vaughan 3 times in concert. And that's as close as I'm going to get. But yeah, Hendrix, the guitar, no doubt about it. Marvin Gaye, what's going on? Well, you could put this in with Stevie Wonder, who also is doing these consciousness songs. So, what Billie Holiday did for jazz, Marvin Gaye did for soul. So, of course, Motown fought him on this album. They wanted him to be, in the Motown mold, and he wanted to break out. So not only is this a great album for socially conscious R&B soul music, but it also is important in the history of putting the middle finger to the record labels. Um, Having complete artistic control over your product is something that people fight for now. But before Marvin Gaye, you were kind of beholden to the contracts and often ripped off, and there were staff songwriters and so forth. It's funny, we're going back to staff songwriters now. But yeah, in 71, I do remember that was the year I really got into music. And I remember hearing this on the radio along with Ecology and Mercy, Mercy, yeah, Mercy, Mercy Me. And there were 3 singles from that album, and they got a lot of rotation. And I liked him, but it was years later that I really appreciated Marvin Gaye. He's now one of my favorite artists. So, yeah, we'll give that probably a 10. But Stevie Wonder was doing the same thing with Motown, with songs like Living for the City. But yeah, I give it to Marvin Gaye. Stairway to Heaven, Led Zeppelin. Interesting. I would say the first album in 69 made a bigger impact. But yeah, Stairway to Heaven was huge. Everyone was talking about the guitar on that song. Again, 71, the year I got into music. It was awesome. It got played to death. It's a song that's hard for me to listen to today because I know every note. It just was. And then when they went to FM radio, it became an FM staple. I've heard this song hundreds of times on the radio. Yeah, I mean Led Zeppelin 4, but I would say that the first 2 Led Zeppelin albums, 1 and 2 in 69, kind of wowed people even more. So I'm a slightly critical of this pick. But what song are you going to take? Um, I guess you'd have to take Whole Lot of Love from 69. I would pick that song over Stairway to Heaven as a song that changed music forever. Let's see what they say about it. Rock epic, um, folk classical influences. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, there was a lot of good FM style rock and roll at that time in 71. So I'm gonna say this was maybe more like a 6 or 7, but it was important at the time. Superstition, Stevie Wonder. So that's what I was talking about. 1972 now we're talking about. I think this is from Fulfilling This First Finale. Stevie Wonder played most of the instruments, including the drums, such a groove. I'm not sure why they're picking this song. Let's see if they're talking about his contract with Motown. Um, If you're just going to talk about the song, it's absolutely great. It's a 10 out of 10. But there were a lot of good R&B and funk tracks in 72. I don't know that Stevie Wonder's Superstition is necessarily standing out from the pack that much. Um, Certainly, his breaking out from Motown was huge, and his talent was huge. And I love this song; it's a fantastic song. But I don't remember it changing music in the way some of those other songs did. So I'm going to score a 5 on this, but the song is a 10 out of 10. So I thought this would be on here, Bohemian Rhapsody. It's hard for people to believe this, but Queen wasn't the biggest band in the world in 1975 or even in the 70s. Not really till Live Aid in 85 did they really start to make a worldwide impact. Um, so if you're talking about real time, I don't know. Certainly, Bohemian Rhapsody was unlike anything else except the band 10cc, who were doing songs like I'm Not in Love the same year using the same overdubbed choral effects. 10cc was just as innovative as Queen. I bought this album the day it came out and I brought it to school. We got a record player from the library. We played it. Our teacher told us to turn it off because it was giving her a headache. Um, so there you go. And she was only 26 at the time. People were not as in love with this song as you would think they were at the time. So I'm going to say there's some revisionism here. Bohemian Rhapsody is now clearly the most well known song from the biggest band in the world. So I think it's got to be on this list. But I just want to be clear that in 1975, it didn't have the impact that it's having today. I think the next generations are the ones that latched onto the song more than my generation. Oh yeah, we liked it and it was incredible. But there was a lot going on. So in terms of 1975, I'm going to score this a 5. In terms of revisionist history, a 10. Yeah, it's important. I see why they put it on the list. Um, Rapper's Delight, Sugar Hill Gang, absolutely 10. Started the whole rap movement. It's interesting. Sylvia Robinson, who had a hit song with a song called Pillow Talk, ended up being the president of Sugar Hill Records after she broke up with what's his name, Sylvia, and that's funny. Love is Strange was the song they had in the 60s. But anyway, she became, and it became this hit, been sampled and sampled and sampled. And yeah, it sounds a little innocent today. Rap started out as kind of dance music, party music, before it got socially conscious. And this and The Message by Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five were the two songs that really just blew the door open on rap. And pretty soon, Blondie was doing rap, The Clash was doing rap. Huge, huge influence. Absolutely give this a 10. Changed music completely. We had never heard anything like it. Number 14, Billie Jean, Michael Jackson. Well, so I just did a video about how we watch music now instead of listen to music because of MTV. MTV started in 81 and they initially didn't want to put Michael Jackson on, and the record labels, to their credit, threatened to pull all artists from MTV if they didn't play more black artists. Black, the term that they used then. I know we say African American now, but in 1982 we talked about black artists. And so finally they relented and they put this on. It was a huge hit. I think is a song. Well, Quincy Jones' production is pretty revolutionary. It's got that deep bass, and it's certainly state of the art production. But I think this had a bigger effect when we saw Michael Jackson. So now we're talking about watching music. The moonwalk and all this kind of thing was just huge. So Jackson is a pop star, 10 out of 10. He changed music forever. But the song itself, I guess you could pick any Michael Jackson song if you're just going to talk about him. Let's see what they say real quick. Um, Unforgettable beat and legendary music video. See, they immediately go in the first sentence to the music video. Um, some would say Thriller was even more influential, but it did come later. Uh, Billie Jean was the first single, I believe, before Beat It, and Pretty Young Thing. And yeah, it really changed things. But yeah, that bass line's pretty darn good, isn't it? So I'll say visually a 10, culturally a 10, as a song, 6. Not because it's a bad song. It's a great song. I love it. Billie Jean is not my lover. She's just the girl that thinks I'm the one. The kid is not my son. Just a great song. But in terms of radio, okay, there's radio, there's MTV. On MTV, it was huge. It was huge. Um, I don't think it had quite the power on the radio. Born in the USA, Bruce Springsteen. Well, shoot. I would have picked something from Born to Run. Born to Run or Thunder Road. Those songs that introduced us to Bruce Springsteen. I don't know if this changed the world. It made him a star. It made him a star. I saw this tour. It's the best show I've ever seen. So I have no argument with Bruce Springsteen. Not my number one artist, but the best show I've ever seen. 1985 Born in the USA tour. Fabulous. 3 hour plus show, hour encore. It was just incredible. So the electricity in the air and the excitement from the fans was great. And it's well produced. But yeah, I guess making American rock and roll, sort of that heartland rock and roll, even though he's from New Jersey, that Seeger, Mellencamp kind of heartland rock and roll, and giving it that sheen and that high production value so it would sound great on the radio was definitely influential. And that drum, just so hard, even in concert. Max Weinberg had hand problems later, banging those drums so hard. So no wonder he took a gig on TV. Um, in terms of sales and popularity and radio play, this was huge. But in the musical timeline, I don't know if I agree. Like I say, this is what put him over the top, made him a big star. Yeah, I don't know. I don't. And most people misunderstood the lyrics. They think it's a patriotic song. So yeah, most people don't even know what the song's about. So I'd have to downplay this a little bit and say it wasn't as important as people think it was. Springsteen, Madonna, and Prince were the three biggest artists of the mid 80s. And you could make a case for any one of them, really. I wouldn't single Springsteen out, but yeah, I'm a huge fan. It's a great tour. So I'll give this like 5 in terms of changing the world forever. But it certainly changed his career. Yeah, misunderstood anthem, which is all the more reason that it wasn't that impactful because people didn't know what it was about. Walk This Way, Run DMC, and Aerosmith. What am I going to rate this? I rate this a 10. I think this merging of rock and roll and rap music was totally a watershed moment. And the video on MTV was huge. And of course, it really brought Rick Rubin into the forefront as a great producer, and he just thought outside the box, and he had to talk um, these guys into it. I guess Run DMC was using Walk This Way as a little when they were cutting records at concerts at rap events, but it was Rick Rubin who was the genius behind this, and he was right. He was right. So here's a guy who is producing Run DMC, the Beastie Boys, and Slayer all at the same time. you know, just great. I know some people don't like him, but I have great reverence for Rick Rubin. He was extremely creative. Plus, he saved Johnny Cash's career. So I give him a lot of credit. Yeah, 10 out of 10. Um, Rap and rock. So later you would have, when you think about the rap rock artists, whether it be Slipknot or who, isn't Max Weinberg's son in that band? Interesting. Um, yeah, just any band that combined rap and rock owes a debt to this song. I knew this would be on here. Yeah, I remember. I was much older when this came out. I would have been 33 years old. Uh, 2 years later, I would go see Nirvana on the In Utero tour. This changed everything. And I think there's enough people on this channel that probably remember. Um, I had a bartender that was lending me CDs in 1989 and 1990 that were early grunge bands like Mudhoney and Soundgarden before they took off. And when Nirvana came out with this song, it just blew the floodgates open. So, Ruskin, are you wanting to be in this video? So, here's my cat Ruskin who wants to know what I'm doing. And he's only 11 months old. Yeah. Ruskin, I know you want to be on, well, maybe you really don't want to be on camera. 10 out of 10, Nirvana. I think enough has been said, written, and talked about. Creep, Radiohead. That's an interesting choice. I actually love this song. And I remember the first time I saw it. It was on MTV at this little thing they had. They were playing it at a pool party. It was live. So I actually heard a live version of the song before I heard the studio version. There were just a bunch of people in swim trunks and bikinis in this pool, and Radiohead was the band at the pool party. It was kind of silly, but I said, "Who is that?" I was very influenced, but later Radiohead would be more influential. But still, lyrically, this would pave the way for songs like "Loser" by Beck. Um, it really was an important first song in kind of self-hatred. Can I use that word? Yeah, kind of a real postmodern lyric. For 92, it was pretty early. It was pretty early. And of course, then when the grunge movement, Nirvana would do I Hate Myself and I Want to Die and all these kinds of songs. But Creep was pretty early in that genre of kind of, self hatred or whatever you want to call it. And that was kind of a new thing. So, yeah, I'd have to think about it. Lyrically, maybe. Let's see if that's what they say. Um, Resonated with outsiders everywhere. Yeah. Yeah, I think that disenchantment, because rock and roll was always about outsiders, always. Marlon Brando and the Wild One. What are you rebelling against? What do you got? So everybody was always a lot of songs about having trouble with girls and stuff like that. But this one just took it to another level. So I'll go ahead and agree with them on this one. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah. Juicy, the Notorious B.I.G. I don't think I'm qualified. I've hit an 18 out of 18 on this list, but I've listened to a lot of rap music, love rap music. Can have read Vibes book on rap music, and I just never really got into the Notorious B.I.G. I was listening to other rap at that time, and in the '90s, I was listening to a lot of trip hop, or everything from Morchiba to Tribe Called Quest to um, Jurassic 5, and just I don't know, just a lot of different things I was listening to in the '90s. And MTV was playing a lot of rap videos at the time, and the problem was that the videos were boring. Not so much the songs, but it was always like you're in a bathtub with gold jewelry and champagne and half dressed girls with big butts, and you know all kind of trying to do some kind of Al Capone kind of thing, or I don't know. I just thought it was boring. So I didn't really get into this. Yes, I've heard the song. I don't know. I don't know how big it was, or influential, I should say. I know it was big, but how influential was it? I don't know. I mean, it seemed like they were playing more videos by Two Live Crew than they were Notorious B.I.G. on MTV. So maybe it was too hard hitting for MTV or for radio. Yeah, I'm gonna pass on that one. Wonderwall, Oasis, okay, Britpop. I have a little bit of a pet peeve with Britpop because I don't think it was as revolutionary as people think it was. To me, it was mining. You had the Kinks and the Who with the mod movement in the '60s, and then later with the punk movement, you had bands like the Jam, and then later you would have Green Day and these bands that were kind of mining this same territory. And to make music that was overtly British in its themes had already been done. So I don't know. I think people give Britpop more credit than it deserves, but in that realm of Britpop, I'll take Wonderwall over just about any other song. My favorite Britpop band is Oasis, and Wonderwall is a wonderful song. Um, so I get it. I get it. I have no argument against the song or the band, but the movement, Britpop, I just think it was somewhat recycled. That's my take. It had been done before, just with a new spin. So, what goes around comes around, right? Britney Spears, Baby One More Time. Well, it was huge if you're going to consider commercial success. Um, but teen stars had been around for a long time. You had the teen idols of the early '60s. You had Fabian and Dion and all these different people. You had Pat Boone in the '50s, and then you would have the Osmonds and the Jackson Five. So it was absolutely nothing new to have a teenager doing a song. Um, yeah, and you had other teenagers at the time. You had Tiffany, and she wasn't as big, but and then you had the boy bands, right? Um, so, and then later you'd have the Spice Girls, and you had like this whole thing of youth power has been around for a long, 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 long time. I just don't think, and I got nothing against Britney Spears, but I don't, I don't know. I mean, it might have seemed new to if you were at exactly the right age when this song came out, you'd be like, "Oh yeah, it changed my life." But it had influences. It had predecessors. And so I would say that it's not as big as they say it is, or, in terms of changing music. Though it did helped pave the way for this feminine domination of rock and roll that we have now. You would have Lady Gaga come along, and but I would say Madonna was the one that really paved the way for Britney Spears. Madonna, can't say enough about how influential she was, and I think Britney Spears was probably riding the coattails of Madonna in terms of the femininity of rock and roll, which now, Beyonce and Olivia Rodriguez and everybody else, yeah. So, yeah, she was one step along the way. She was important, but she had her predecessors and people that followed her. I just think it's part of a lineage or a train of people. So I would rate this about a 4 in terms of its influentialness. Lose Yourself, Eminem. My favorite song is Stan, pretty typical choice. Eminem was very important. But again, I think people like the Beastie Boys helped pave the way, but Eminem was huge and talented, I think, very talented. And yeah, his star has fallen, but when he was in his heyday, um, and his subject matter, yeah, his subject matter, his songs still, I like them, but sometimes they make me uncomfortable in a good way. Uh, Lose Yourself. I'm not sure about that particular song, but Eminem was huge. So people are going to try to pull race, I suppose, into this that you had a white rap artist. Um, but he was, at that time, I would say he was the best. Because before him, you had Vanilla Ice and people like that. He came along and showed that he could hang with the best rappers. So that was a statement. Let's see if that's what they're saying. Um, so they're talking more about the song, rapid fire delivery, compelling lyrics. Yeah, I'm trying to remember how Lose Yourself goes, and that's the problem that I'm having is that song's not coming to mind. Um, but Eminem was huge. Yeah, and I think he helped push rap music forward. So I'm not going to give it a 10 out of 10 for influence, but it was important. Hey, yeah, Outcast. Why? Because it's Southern rap? Is that why? Um, it was a good song. I listened to it when it came out. We got that album in 2003 and played it several times, and but it's not my favorite track on the album. Of course, it's a double with both of them, Andre 3000, and you know who I'm talking about. Anyway, the you got two distinct styles. I think it was huge as an album. To pick on this particular song, yeah, I don't know. I don't remember it being that earth shaking when it came out. But this and and Little Wayne kind of started the Southern rap movement, I think, or I don't know. Outkast was pretty early though, but they weren't as commercially successful right out the bat. Those albums, like was it called Aquamini, and those albums didn't. It wasn't really. I don't think till Stankonia that they started to really hit their mark. I think. I mean, at this point, there wasn't as much radio. It's hard to say. Radio had split into urban and country and all these other things. So if you didn't listen to a particular format, you missed it. Whereas music used to be more integrated on the radio. But yeah, Shake It Like a Polaroid. I don't know. I have other songs I like better on this album, but if you said the album was influential, I'd say yeah. Yeah, it broke us out of that East Coast versus West Coast rap thing that we had, and started introducing other markets in the United States. In that regard, it was quite influential. Crazy Gnarls Barkley, man, you couldn't avoid that song, could you? It was everywhere. It was on the radio, it was on at the grocery store, in the mall. You always heard Crazy, and I love the song. I think it's great. Um, I don't know, why are they saying it's such a great song, though? Genre defying that proved digital singles could dominate the charts. Um, it's just catchy. It's a super catchy song. It gets stuck in my head. Earworm, for sure. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, for that year, it was a lot of people's favorite song of the year, and it was certainly one of my top five songs of the year. Um, I, genre defying. I don't know. I don't hear that so much, but we'll give it some credence on here. Great song, though. Rolling in the Deep. So, see, they're going with a lot of commercial things here, but Adele, I'm a huge Adele fan. So, of all the 21st century artists on here, including, well, Oasis is a 90s band, but of all the more modern bands, I'm a huge Adele fan. She has a great voice, but I know why. It's because her production is more retro. And there's a song of hers that I like. The song's not coming to mind, but it's just her and piano. Yeah, it's wonderful. Um, Rolling in the Deep is a great song. I think it's 10 out of 10. I absolutely love this song. And when she did it on the Tiny Desktop concert, it was still a great song, even though it didn't have all the production values of this song. Rick Rubin worked with her, but she changed producers, and I forgot who produced this, but they did a fantastic job. And yeah, it's all part of that feminine dominance of the charts these days. But Adele is supremely talented. Good lyricist, good singer. Yeah, I suppose in terms of copycats, yeah, you'd have to give it up for Adele. What's the last one on here? Old Town Road, Little Nas X. You finally got me. You finally got me. I don't know this song. Guess I'll have to react to it, huh? Let's see what they say about it. Country and hip hop. All right. Okay. Yeah, we knew that was coming. And that's important because if you want to pull race in, right, country is traditionally white music and rap is traditionally black. And when Elvis came along and he merged country and R&B, that was revolutionary at the time. So I see where they're going with this. But to talk about the list overall, I will say if you want to talk about influence, of course, early songs were more influential because they influenced everyone that came after them. So when you're talking about a song that's 6 years old, how much time do you have to reflect on the importance of the song? Has it been that influential in just 6 years? More older picks, not because older music's better, older picks because it caused a chain reaction. You know, we were talking about what goes around comes around. But obviously, merging rap music and country music is a fairly recent event, and I applaud it. Yeah, I applaud it. So I don't know. I got to pass on this one. Anyway, let me know what you think. And as we say here in Bonita, Mexico, buen dia.